It's okay. Just skip it. There's nothing going to be on it anyway. You can't give it up. Okay. Is everybody ready? Is that a yes? Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm joined today with Rockford Police Chief Dan O'Shea, and I'm here to give you an update on a criminal investigation. On June 27, 2020, at approximately 11 p.m., William P. Gettings was pulled over by Rockford Police Officer Frank Fabiani. During the traffic encounter with Gettings, an altercation ensued, which originally resulted in charges being filed against Gettings. However, upon review of video footage that was captured, all charges against Gettings have been dismissed. Subsequently, misdemeanor battery charges have been filed against Officer Frank Fabiani. He is scheduled to appear in Courtroom C at 1 p.m. on August 13, 2020. These charges are merely allegations, and the defendant is presumed innocent until or unless proven guilty in a court of law. Before I take questions, I'd like to just share with you a few rules of professional conduct regarding the prosecutor. So Rule 3.8 deals with special responsibilities of a prosecutor. The duty of the prosecutor is to seek justice, not merely convict. Rule 3.6 states, it prohibits extrajudicial statements that pose a serious or imminent threat of prejudicing an adjudicatory process. In the context of a criminal prosecution, prosecutors' extrajudicial statements can create the additional problem of increasing public condemnation of the accused. Now, I share those rules with you so that you understand this is an ongoing prosecution and investigation. Questions that I can answer and the chief can answer, we're happy to do so, but I want you to understand that ethically there may be questions that I cannot answer. So with that, we'll take questions.
First, can you spell the officer's last name?
Yes, it's F as in Frank, A-B-I-A-N-I.
Can you talk a little bit about when that video caused the change in those charges to be dropped, or maybe elaborate some more on that?
Well, what I can say in general is the state's attorney is charged with prosecuting criminal violations. The state's attorney also has an ethical obligation to review evidence, and if the state's attorney believes that those criminal violations should not be filed, the state's attorney has an ethical duty to not proceed with those charges.
We talk about going over that evidence, and the main evidence in this is the dash cam footage. Will that footage be released?
Okay, I read to you, and the reason I read to you Rule 3.6 is that the state's attorney's office cannot do anything that might impact on a defendant's ability to receive a fair trial, or as the rule indicates, to receive condemnation from the public. So I can tell you, my ethical responsibilities do not allow me to release that footage to the public at this time. The criminal process will proceed and all evidence will be presented in court. At that time, anyone from the public will be available and allowed to view that. But I will not release that in advance because I'm ethically bound not to do so.
Is it possible to have a little bit more information about the officer, like how long he's been in the department?
I think Chief O'Shea can respond to that question, and I'll just step aside. Thank you.
I don't have the exact amount of time, but I believe he's been on about 18, 19 months, and he is on paid administrative leave pending this criminal case and this investigation.
Chief, Chief O'Shea, this is a time that police, and in particular here in Rockford, the protesters, especially RYA, have been calling out Rockford police for some time. It's a time that, like I mentioned, police are under fire. What does this do in context of everything that's going on right now? There have been marches around police districts, around the Justice Center. You know, what do you kind of take away from this?
Like I've said since I came here, we will hold ourselves accountable. And whether there's protesting or not protesting, and it's not just Rockford, it's happening across the country. And in this particular instance, as in several other instances over the last couple of years, we will hold ourselves accountable. And whenever appropriate, the State's Attorney's Office will render charges. But as far as this particular having to do with protest, this is individualistic to this traffic stop, to this incident, not relative of everything else.
Chief O'Shea, do you see there being a need for some reform in the way that officers are trained in Rockford, or is there anything in the works for that?
No, I believe Rockford, I firmly believe the Rockford police officers receive top shelf training from our training division. I think they are on the cutting edge of teaching training, and the officers go through it every year. I'm very happy with our training. Is there always room for improvement? Absolutely. And whether we see it or the outside sees it, we're always open to trying to seek what's best. Best for the officers, best for the community. But I think our training division and our officers receive top shelf training.
And with the criminal complaint that was at the time against getting there was other officers involved, are they potentially facing any charges at all, or if you can, I guess, maybe talk a little bit about any other?
Yeah, anything to do with criminal charges is done by the State's Attorney's Office.
As I indicated earlier, the State's Attorney's Office reviews evidence to determine whether criminal charges should be filed and against whom. I have done that in this matter. Obviously, if there's additional information that comes forward, I'm open to reviewing that as well because I'm ethically bound to do so. And remember, prosecutors serve everyone in the community. When it says we the people and I took that oath, it meant all of the people, victims, defendants, and the community. And so we have to obviously execute our duties with humility and with temperance, and honestly and fairly in all situations. So these charges today are what my office does all the time. We review the evidence, we follow the evidence, and if charges are warranted, we file the charges. If they are not, we do not file the charges.
I guess going off of that, can you help understand with that original criminal complaint being against vetting, why maybe that, was the video ever taken into consideration during those charges and during that criminal complaint, or maybe why that was?
So I understand the question, and what I will tell you is that when those original charges were authorized, we did not have the video footage available. And again, as in any criminal investigation, we are always looking and reviewing, and we received that very promptly from the Rockford Police Department, so I certainly applaud them for getting that over to my office very quickly. Once that was reviewed, then I made the determination that charges would be dismissed against William Gettings.
And I guess is that, or can that be typical for some type of evidence like that not being present for when charges are made, or is that, I guess, unique in that the video kind of came later?
It is common, and I'll tell you why, is because unfortunately we don't have ready available video to communicate to the State's Attorney's Office in a lot of events. And so sometimes we get those days later, weeks later, and it's just a matter of getting that information over to us because we don't have another way of accessing that information immediately. And so again, when that information comes over to my office, we do in fact review that.
I understand this might not be able to be answered, but in the mugshot for Mr. Gettings, there is a lot of some bruises, some damage to his face. Is that what this battery charge against the officer is for in relation to that?
I can't comment on any evidence that might be adduced at trial because that could impact the defendant's ability to receive a fair trial.
Fauché, Mr. Gettings identifies as a transgender person, and I think some people have talked about prejudice in the workforce. Can you talk about what RPD does to kind of eliminate prejudice? A lot of it has had to do with race in the recent months and weeks, but maybe going as far as transgender and LGBTQ and so on.
Sure. So every year, or every other year, there's mandated bias-based police training, as well as de-escalation training, as well as our policies and procedures and our training that's done where we don't discriminate against anybody for race, sex, creed, any of the other items that we just don't discriminate against people, and we don't, it's not how we operate. And if this particular case, an individual says they're transgender or whatever, the LGBTQ or whatever it might be, that has no impact on how we do our policing. We treat everyone the exact same way. Doesn't matter who they are, doesn't matter where they live, doesn't matter how old they are, how young they are, doesn't matter what sex they are, everyone gets treated the exact same way. And the officers go through the training, and if we had anybody discriminating against anybody inside the building, it's my job to root them out and get rid of them.
Chief O'Shea talked about, officers holding one another accountable.
Mhm.
I guess did anyone bring, concerns to you, or in this case were there, concerns by other officers maybe potentially brought forward?
There's a criminal case pending. I can't comment on that matter. Any other?
As with the original criminal complaint being dropped against Mr. Gettings, would it be fair or accurate to say what's contained in the criminal complaint then, and that case is not accurate?
Again, I cannot comment on the pending case because it obviously ancillarily impacts the pending prosecution. That original criminal complaints have been dismissed. It's available for public view. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, everyone. I understand you're pretty busy this afternoon, so thank you.